I am recording.
Ba-ba-ba.
Is that right? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 657th episode of the Pokemon Podcast. It's super effective. I'm your host, Steve. With me is Hannah.
I am here. I had a dream this past week where I opened up a pack in Pocket, a pack of Pokemon cards in Pocket, and it was an entire pack of gold cards. And the first thing I did was rush to our text messages to text you that I had opened an entire pack of gold cards.
Is that possible?
It's probably possible.
In Hannah's dream?
I think it's possible.
I think that's possible statistically. Poppy also here.
No, yeah, that would be amazing. I have the worst luck in Pocket. Continue to have the worst luck in Pocket. So I just want, my dream is to open one gold card in a pack, let alone 5.
Okay, so this is going to be our Pokemon Day prediction show. We do have a little bit of news that we will get to before we get to that. I guess if you're listening on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, there's jump points. I put the little time stamps in the show notes, and then you can click on it, and we'll jump to that part of the episode. That's existed for a while. So if you only want to hear the Pokemon Day prediction stuff, because everyone loves that, there's a little time jump stamp. If you are not going to Unova Tour and you need something to do this weekend, and also you have, at least if you live in the U.S. and your sleep schedule is messed up, you can watch the European International Championships that will be happening. That'll be on Twitch and YouTube and wherever they stream. There's going to be 3 distributions, though. So there's going to be Marco Silva's Jumpluff, which will be available sometime during the stream. I'll make a little graphic. I'll post that on Instagram and Blue Sky and all that stuff. But once that code is out there, it will be available until February 28th. The Jumpluff is not shiny because Marco did not use a shiny Jumpluff. That's how it works. It's based off the Pokemon they use, but it will have the partner ribbon and the, what is it, classic ribbon, whatever the other ribbon is. It'll have 2 ribbons. It'll be in a cherish ball, all that stuff. If you play TCG Live, and I know as soon as I post this on Instagram and Blue Sky, people are going to ask if this is for TCG Pocket. It's not. It's going to be for TCG Live. There will be an Eevee EX that you will be able to redeem that way. That's going to be redeemable until March 3rd or while supplies last. I don't know why TCG Live has limits. I don't think anyone ever hits the limits, but that's a thing that exists. And then there will be... Oh, there's actually 4. There will be Marto Gale... I don't know how to say this person. Pokemon Go uses usernames, not like real names. Marto Galde. Their Jumpluff will be available in Pokemon Go. Except, I think it's just a Jumpluff. I don't think it doesn't have like.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, they don't
make it special.
Yeah, they don't give it the moves, right? Because they tell you what moves the player had on their Jumpluff, but they make it sound like you have to TM it if you don't get
right.
Like, those
it says
specific
they
moves.
Succeeded with Fairy Wind and Energy Ball. You won't have those, but good luck.
Uh-huh.
And then in Pokemon Unite, which I think this is the first time they're doing Unite. I don't ever remember seeing this. It's just item enhancers. During EUIC, if you watch the twitch.tv/Pokemon Unite stream for at least 30 minutes, you will get 200 item enhancers. I'm sure that'll break. Anytime there's like Twitch drops, they never work. And then...
Well, some games are better about it than others.
Yes.
The Pokemon games do not have a great track record.
They don't. And I've given Pokemon this feedback of it's not their fault exactly, because I'm sure, especially with Niantic, it could be Niantic's fault, it could be Pokemon's fault, it could be Twitch's fault, it could be, and a lot of the time, it is just the user's fault for not understanding how they work, right? Like, so when I was in Hawaii and my channel had exclusive Twitch drops, people were like, it's not working, I don't have the Pikachu, and I've had to suffer and watch you for an hour. And what they didn't read or what they didn't realize is they did successfully do it. They got the field research that they then had to complete for the Pikachu, but they're in my chat being like, I don't have it, it's not working, what do I do? I'm outside in 100-degree weather with a backpack on. I don't know your specific issue.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to solve that for you. And I think there's a lot of almost like the same people being like, it's not working, aka I didn't read actually what is supposed to happen here. But they also think like, I can fix it. Like, I have nothing to, like, I have something to do with it, as in like my channel qualifies. There's nothing I can do on my end. There's no buttons I can press, or like let me turn it off and turn it back on. I have no control of why your scroll bar is stuck, why you didn't get it, where it went. Did you even link your account? Which was also part of the problem, was people just not linking their accounts and being like, oh, it's not working. Well, did you link your account? Well, what account? Your Pokemon account. What do you mean, what account?
Well,
Yeah.
the good thing about that is, as someone, I mean, we've all been there. As someone who's worked in who'd worked in tech support for like 10 years prior to accounting, it's not just a Pokemon problem.
Yeah. Yeah. We have all done tech support here. This is an unfortunate circumstance where they are seeing you as someone who can provide tech support.
Well, I mean, I get it. It's my channel, and I'm
Sure.
offering the drops, I guess, but there ain't nothing I can do. And I totally, when I worked at Apple, people would come in and they would be like, hey, I forgot my password to my Gmail. I need to get in. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try to reset your password. Let's try to go through this. And they'd be like, well, don't you just have my password? I was like, why would I have your Gmail password? And they're like, this is your computer. This is an Apple computer. Don't you have my passwords?
Yeah, no.
No. You're not even using an Apple account, which, by the way, we don't have the password to that either, but this is a Gmail. There were if there is, I still have the VOD of that stream somewhere of the when the drops turned on when I was in Hawaii, because I was walking back from the convention center to my hotel to upload like an Instagram picture, image of like some distribution, whatever they gave in Hawaii. I don't even remember what it was. And I've never, I have seen people get this mad, but it is still shocking to me how mad people get that something isn't working for a free item that they want. And it was my fault as I walked back to my hotel room outside.
Yeah.
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 But I've given
I mean,
Pokemon all that feedback of like something. I don't know how you guys need to communicate better of linking your accounts. Doing
Something
this.
needs to be streamlined so that the people who are advertising for you don't get targeted and harassed.
Yeah. Steve, you are just chilling in Hawaii while this person just wants their 25 raspberries.
What? They're 200
understand
item
the anger.
enhancers right now.
Hopefully, it goes more smoothly with this particular Pokemon Unite drop.
Yes.
And go.
And go.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They
all
also
of
messed
them.
it up in Hawaii, where day 2 actually happened on day 1, and then day 1 happened on day 2. They just mixed it up, so people were
Well,
like,
that's a different issue.
that's a whole different issue. So EUIC is happening. If I'm awake, or maybe while I'm setting up for stream for Go, we'll have it on in the background. We'll try to catch a little bit of it. maybe I think my channel is supposed to have drops because it is Pokemon Go related in some instance. I don't know, but I'll try to be live. There's a lot happening before going into this weekend, so just I don't know. Pay attention to social media or the Discord or the Slack. I'll update. Okay. Shiny Meltan, Shiny Keldeo. I think this will lead into our Pokemon Day predictions pretty nicely. I think that'll be a good transition into what's happening here. So, Pokemon Home updated to 3.3.2, or the 3.3.2 was already there, but 3.2.2, sorry, added the ability to earn special Pokemon by completing a Pokedex. So that was not in the game prior. You might say, well, what about Magearna? Magearna wasn't looking at specific Pokedexes. They were just looking at your national dex up to a certain point. I think it went up to like Regieleki, Regidrago. I don't even know if you need any Pokemon after that. And that Magearna is not shiny. It's an original color Magearna. So until the 3.2.2 update, this couldn't exist, and now it does. So when they did Keldeo, or sorry, not Keldeo, when they did Meloetta, that was the first Pokemon of the 3.2.2 update. And then with Manaphy and Enamorus, that was done on the 3-year anniversary of Legends Arceus. And then this came very quickly, the Keldeo and the Meltan. But they came on the 5-year anniversary of Pokemon Home. So all these Pokemon had a reason to come out. It wasn't just like panic pushed them out. 3-year anniversary of Legends Arceus 5. I can't believe I've been paying for Pokemon Home for 5 years.
I know.
And it feels exactly the same it did 5 years ago.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that is true. It feels, every time I think about the fact that Pokemon Home came out in February of 2020, and then I think about the fact that Sword and Shield came out in November of 2019, something about those dates being so close to each other doesn't feel that way for how, like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if I feel like Sword and Shield's been around way longer than Pokemon Home, or if Pokemon Home has been around, like, less time. Maybe it's because Pokemon Home hasn't changed in 5 years that it feels like it hasn't been around for 5 years.
It's such a... It's like insulting. There's the issue where you can't even see ribbons or marks on the Switch version of the app, which is infuriating. Because
you need the mobile app for that.
Because that app has mass release.
Yeah.
And if you can't like just tap on a Pokemon and be like, which does this one have any marks or ribbons? You just can't check. You also can't redeem any of these rewards. The Keldeo, the Meltan, the Meloetta. You can't redeem them on the Switch app. You need to use the mobile app, which isn't that big of an issue, but still like frustrating. Why? Like it just seems very simple to log in, and your accounts are tied. Like if you log into one, it kicks you out of the other if you have them both open. So I don't know what the limitation of that is to just kick you out and be like, you can't redeem it here. There's just like so many little things, and I genuinely mean the app has not changed in 5 years. They're like 3.2.2 update. We added this feature and we added the journal. The journal's like okay, but the mobile version of this app has labels. You can label all of your Pokemon, and that's like a cool feature to be like, I'm going to label these as like competitive. I'm going to label these as like Pokemon with ribbons or marks. I'm going to label these as the ones I've taken through the story. I'm going to label these as things I'm going to like eventually evolve or catch up on. As soon as you move any of those Pokemon into any of these games, and then you move them back, the label gets removed. It doesn't remember it. It's been 5 years since they introduced labels, and still the basic functionality of if I move a Pokemon out of home into Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet and move it back, that label is now removed from the Pokemon. There's no point in using labels unless you never plan to move those Pokemon out of home. Which is...
I mean...
maybe.
Did Ilka make the Switch version of the app? Or just the mobile version?
From my understanding, they're in charge of both.
Okay. Well, then we're talking about the same company that didn't fix the text in BDSP about the shiny charm is not like... I will say this. The consistency of Switch Pokemon games not being fixed over time is consistent.
Maybe it'll be different for the Switch too.
Yeah, maybe. They're like, oh, we got to make this app work on a new console. I hate so much that Ilka or Pokemon or whoever was in charge of like this faithful remake BDSP language that they decided to put into all of their marketing. And I'm not exaggerating. They use the word faithful remake a lot in advertising BDSP. Mm-hmm. You talk about BDSP was so... No more Pokemon Day predictions. It's just going to be an hour of me complaining about BDSP. BDSP was so bad at launch. They had to do an emergency update because some people couldn't even open the game. It just
10 out of 10.
Didn't work.
10 out of 10 game.
And...
That's a benefit. That was a feature. Those people didn't have to play.
And they did an emergency update to fix it. And then speedrunners broke the game so much that they had to go back in and like fix and like try to like get speedrunners to stop breaking the game as bad as they did. They had time and energy, even in Scarlet and Violet, going back to Game Freak, where people were duplicating items or people were breaking the game. Those got fixed so quickly, within like 2 weeks, which is very fast for the Pokemon Company. 2 weeks is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And one thing in BDSP that still isn't fixed, that isn't the shiny charm, is that suction cups and sticky hold do not work when you are fishing. And that was a bug originally in Diamond and Pearl. And you can be like, oh, faithful remake. But, like, these are two abilities that are supposed to help you fish. And, yes, they didn't work. And, yes, you're saying faithful remake. But you had time to fix all of these other things because you were so adamant about preventing speedrunners from breaking your game. You couldn't fix two abilities to help with fishing. You just couldn't. You couldn't do that. You can fix the labels in Pokemon Home. You can fix any of this.
Know. The purists would know if you fix that. They'd be like, "This isn't a faithful remake. What are they doing?" I, for one, can't wait for the BDSP remakes. Eventually make their way to us.
You know, at one point when they were fixing things, they broke radar hunting, and then they had to do another fix to fix radar hunting after they broke it. And radar hunting isn't faithful either. They changed how that worked.
That's why they could fix it.
Is that the same? Anyways, you can now get Shiny Keldeo by completing your Galar Pokedex, your Isle of Armor Pokedex, and your Crown Tundra Pokedex in Sword and Shield. Shiny Keldeo for the first time ever. That means the only Pokemon in Gen 5 that cannot be shiny as of now, as of this recording, is Shiny Victini. And then you can get a Shiny Meltan in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. You only need 150 Pokemon for that, so you don't need the Mew. You don't need another Meltan. You don't need another Melmetal, because technically Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee goes up to 153. So those are now available. And
you can't evolve that Meltan.
You cannot evolve that Meltan, that's true.
You can only evolve Meltan and Go. So, which is... it is what it is. Maybe one day we'll get a main series game where Meltan can evolve.
When they figure out which Pokedex it should be in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I saw people be upset about the Meltan reward. I don't know. Like you didn't have a lot of options in Let's Go.
They wanted
guess
Mew. They wanted shiny Mew. I think Meltan. I don't know. I feel like shiny Mew. I don't know about anything anymore.
Shiny Mew probably would have made people happy. Shiny Meltan is better than nothing.
Yeah, it's like
I think it's not bad.
It's like the easiest Pokedex in the world to complete. It's so tiny. It's so like the Pokemon in that game are so accessible to get to. It's not like it's not like in BDSP where 8 Pokemon are a 1% chance on like a honey tree or something. Like it's a relatively easy Pokedex. Meltan is for better or worse, like in correlation with like Let's Go of the Let's Go had that first connectivity with Pokemon Go, so it makes sense.
Yep.
I do think it's funny that it can evolve. I'm sure when they were uploading it they were like, check this. Like I say that because Game Freak, or maybe just the Pokemon Company in general, has trolled players many times before. I think in like Sun and Moon, there's a Haunter that they'll like trade you that's holding an Everstone. So when you finish the trade, the Haunter doesn't evolve. Like, I think that's why it's like not that big of a deal to me. Of like, it's a pretty easy Pokedex. Of course, it would be Meltan. Of course, it wouldn't evolve. There's plenty of people who have not played Pokemon Go. Meltan isn't always on for Pokemon Go, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I know the argument I saw was like, you can get shiny Meltan in Pokemon Go. Yeah, you can get shiny Mew in Pokemon Go too. Like, I don't know if that argument holds up. Like, both of these Pokemon are available in that game.
That's true. It's true. Is it in a Cherish Ball?
It is in a Cherish Ball, yeah. So this will be the second
cool.
Meltan ever in a Cherish Ball. The first Meltan was a Chinese exclusive Meltan. Because Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee just came out in mainland China last September, so it's not even a year old. So they just got a Meltan in a Cherish Ball through a distribution. So this is for like 99% of people listening to this podcast, this is the first Meltan in a Cherish Ball you will ever get. It's also, I think, the first Meltan that doesn't have the G symbol, if you don't like that G.
True.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Gosh.
Yeah. Because we got the Melmetal in home.
For the home reward. But I think
but you can transfer Meltan into Let's Go, right? And
yes, but if you catch it, it will still have the G.
Okay.
Got it. First one.
Yes. So that's something. No G. Yeah, it's I'm sure once Melmetal comes to 7-star raids, G-Max Melmetal and 7-star G-Max raids, I'm sure they'll be a little more lenient on that. So, but that completes pretty much everything. So we have Sword and Shield, Legends Arceus, Diamond and Pearl, Scarlet and Violet. And all those Pokedexes now have rewards, which means I don't think there's ever going to be a reward for the Pokemon Go Pokedex. We still don't have Arceus. We still don't have Honedge. We still don't have a ton of other Pokemon. I don't think that Pokedex. If there's a time where that Pokedex will be completed, Pokemon Go will probably be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because by the time we even get 1025, there would be more Pokemon added to the game.
Yeah.
So you're just constantly playing catch up. Unless they did something where it was like get just 500 Pokemon and
I could almost see them doing that.
Yeah. I mean, BDSP was that way, right? Like you only had to have 150 Pokemon
Yeah.
Like that Pokedex, right, is only, was 150 Pokemon in home that you needed to complete to get the mana fee. So they could do something like that. Although I feel like if they did do a completion of the Go Pokedex in some way, got you something shiny, you would think it would have been Meltan since that like originated in Go, but it's already taken.
Maybe it'll be Melmetal.
Yeah.
And that's how you can get the Melmetal without the G.
Finally.
There you go.
I guess that begs the question of like Legends ZA, the next Pokemon game, should have a reward. It might not have a reward right away, but it should have a reward. So Shiny Victini it is. Well, I also think like just because they have done so many mythicals. I mean, Meltan is a mythical, Keldeo is mythical. You do look at an Amorous and you go, that's not a mythical. So if ZA was to introduce new Pokemon, I think it's safe to say we'll probably get a couple new Megas, right? But if there's a couple new Pokemon, would the reward just not be the Enamorous of that game?
Right.
It probably would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't be like, oh, Victini or Zarude or Diancie. Diancie's already been technically distributed.
Volcanion, everyone's favorite. It's got a great shiny.
It does have a really good shiny.
Doesn't not released.
It does have a good shiny. I like the concept of this. I like completing a Pokedex in order to get, a sought after shiny. I think that's more fun or more memorable or more enjoyable than going to GameStop and getting a code.
I suppose.
I mean, maybe going to GameStop is better than playing BDSP. But for the other games,
that's part of what I was thinking.
For the other
as a kid, going to GameStop or going to wherever else they were doing the distributions, it can be fun and memorable to get the Pokemon distribution codes there. But I know that a lot of people were also complaining that there's no effort you have to put into to do that, and so now there is effort that you have to put in to get these Pokemon, so maybe that's a good thing.
I think
it's nice that they're available.
The
it can be
social
fun.
anxiety that some of our listeners have to talk to a GameStop employee, I would say count as effort. You gotta really work it up to be like, can I please get a code?
It's true. That's not wrong.
Oh, also, the GameStop is doing the Eevee, the flying Terra type Eevee code.
Flying Terra type Eevee.
I did
Eevee
not
with
have
the balloons.
Yes, Eevee with the balloons. I did not have to talk to a GameStop employee. They just had them on the counter, and I just took one.
They know people don't want to talk to them. Social anxiety or not, they know people don't want to talk to them. But I will say, with those codes, I feel like I did see something in the Slack. I feel like there was some confusion from GameStop employees because I believe there's also an Eevee physical TCG card. Like this year's Pokemon Day card we talked about this last week, but it's Eevee. It's going to be Eevee for 2025. And with that, there's typically like a purchase that needs to be made. So it's usually like a $15 or a $20 purchase that needs to be made to get that card. And I know that people were going in looking for the Eevee with balloons distribution, and then employees were like, you need to buy something. Also, we don't have this until like Pokemon Day. And it's like, no, it's already available. Also, I don't need to buy anything. So like, with the Eevee with balloons distribution promo card, you shouldn't need to, or with that card that Steve just showed on camera. If you're not on camera, sorry. The Eevee with balloons are like the Terra Eevee in Scarlet Violet. That doesn't need to have a purchase. You should be able to get that one without buying anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other one we will update as that actually comes out. But
Did-
I do think there was some confusion on the
I don't know if the
employee
U.S.
side.
is getting the TCG Eevee.
Is it just out of country? Is it just out of country? Because
I got that news from Pokemon.com/UK. There's nothing on the U.S. Pokemon website about the
Interesting.
Eevee card distribution.
interesting. I was just going off of last year, and the fact that that Eevee card is actually a part of a Prismatic Evolutions box set that's coming out later this year as well.
Yeah, but I mean, GameStop
so-
employees, there is always going to be some employees saying you need to buy something to get this card with
Also
the
true.
promo code. That
That is also
always happens, even though it is pretty much never the case.
Yeah.
That's true. They really try to get you to pre-order a game or something. Yeah, but yeah, just as a reminder, you do not need to purchase anything to get the Flying Terra type EV
Yes.
code. Yeah, please don't purchase anything. to
I
do
mean, if
to
you
do that
want.
for that
Yeah,
purpose. Purchase
nothing
something if
for
you
that
want
purpose.
to,
Yeah.
but don't do it just to get that code because you do not need to do that.
Don't let it keep you from getting the code.
Yeah.
I did see that some GameStops were giving away Pokemon Day pins, like enamel pins, like really nice.
Ooh.
But there's nothing on Pokemon.com or anything that I found to say what the qualifications were or who was doing that. I first saw them on Instagram of just somebody I followed. They were like, "Oh, I got this at my GameStop." It was the code card I held up, and then it was like a pin. And then I went on eBay, and then I saw people selling said pin. But nowhere did I ever see an announcement of these pins. They almost look like the circle pins on Pokemon Center of like.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look cheap. They don't look like a button pin. Like they look like a pin.
Feels like that would be something they would like almost like announce on Pokemon Day,
Yeah.
and then
And that
you
maybe
would
some stores are
get
doing
that.
it early.
Hey, GameStop is getting weird because I also saw that they brought back the 151 booster bundles at GameStop, and instead of being $26 like they are from any other big box store, they're $40 at GameStop. So GameStop is selling things for higher than this is not neither here nor there, but GameStop's doing weird things. Is all I'm saying.
I mean,
I don't
as
understand.
somebody who worked at GameStop a long time ago, there were definitely. I don't know about other GameStops, but when in our stock room, which was just a glorified closet, there were a lot of promotional boxes, and I, as an employee, couldn't just open those. The only person that could open those boxes were a manager, and if the manager didn't care enough, sometimes those promotional boxes didn't get opened in time. So, like, I don't know, let's just say like Halo 3 was coming out, and there was like a free lanyard or something with Halo 3. But if they didn't open the box, then those people didn't get the lanyard. And then like 2 months later, you're like, what is this box for? And then you open it and you're like, oh, these are the Halo lanyards. Well, what are you going to do with them now? And then it's like, oh, well, nothing. That event is over. So either those lanyards got tossed or magically disappeared somewhere, or sometimes those items would get like a random like used price tag on them, and then they would go on the shelf to be sold. So
Okay, I see.
I would not be surprised if some GameStops opened the pins early and they started giving the pins away, or if the pins were supposed to be for Pokemon Day, or 6 months down the line, we're going to find a bunch of pins go up on eBay because that box was never opened in time. This is like a very like classic GameStop thing of how much does the managers care and how strict the
Yeah.
managers are of who's opening what box.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's not exclusive to GameStop. I'm sure that also happens at like Best Buy and Target and Walmart and stuff.
For sure. That's just a retail thing. For sure.
The Flying Terra Eevee it says on Pokemon.com from February 7th through the 27th, you can pick up this code from Best Buy, GameStop, Toys R Us, EB Games. And on the back of the code, it says you can redeem it until June 30th. So
Nice.
if you got plenty of time once you get the code. All right, let's take one more break, and then we will do our Pokemon Day predictions. We will be right back. And we are back from our break. Pokemon Day predictions. I feel like, for me, it's Pokemon Day things that will not definitely happen.
Yeah, my first prediction is that GameStop will have enamel pins.
All right, okay.
That's a good call. Good call.
I want to get this out of the way first. I saw a graphic going around Twitter of Eevee and Evolutions in a balloon. And then the balloon had all the colors, and then people were pointing out, what is this grayish white color on the balloon? Could that mean that there's a new Eevee, aka a flying Eevee? That's why there's a flying Terra-type Eevee in Scarlet and Violet, and the Pokemon Center said it was Eevee, the year of Eevee. I feel like we talked about this, but the year of Eevee is exclusive to Pokemon Center. It has Pokemon Center branding. It is purely for merch. It is not the year of Eevee celebrated by all of the Pokemon Company. The Pokemon Center branding on that is very specific. So once you bring that up, I feel like you just have pointed out to everyone that you do not know how to read, because you're missing the part that says Pokemon Center. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's the year of Eevee from everyone.
Well, there is Eevee stuff happening all over the place, and I'm not going to argue and say that this is going to result in a new Evolution, even though I think at this point, with all the discussions on the podcast, it would be really funny if it did. But there is Eevee stuff happening outside of the Pokemon Center, and I think that saying that the year of Eevee, in name, yes, they have said that that's a Pokemon Center only thing, but there is other stuff happening.
But there's always Eevee stuff happening.
There's always, they have a
like saying
whole
there's
Twitter
Charizard
account
stuff happening.
dedicated to Eevee, and it tweeted every day for like 2 years straight.
There's always Eevee. I mean,
That's the thing, is like there's just always Eevee.
stuff.
yes, there is always Eevee
There is
stuff.
often Eevee stuff,
Okay.
but not always. There is a lot happening at the moment.
I think that we talked about this. Eevee is just like the opposite of Pikachu. So they already did Pikachu with balloons. This is Eevee with balloons. I don't think the Terra type Eevee is hinting at a flying Eevee. I just think this is the Terra type that has balloons, and we use balloons to celebrate an event, like a birthday or an anniversary, or in this case, Pokemon Day.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do the promotional graphic of Eevee in the balloons because Prismatic Evolutions came out and Eevee is here, right? If anything, they're just pushing people back towards Prismatic Evolutions and being like, you should buy this.
You can't buy it, though. That's the problem. It's nowhere to be found. So, yeah.
Like Eevee has the same, like Eevee is above Charizard in how it is treated. Like
yeah.
there won't be a game where Eevee is like not included. That I think is the hot take. Like Eevee and Pikachu are guaranteed to be in like every single Pokemon game. And we kind of thought the same for Charizard until Legends Arceus came out, and there was no Charizard. And there was speculation of, will Legends Arceus get DLC? I do not think the update was truly DLC. It didn't add Pokemon. It didn't like...
Didn't they call it DLC, though?
I think they did.
Didn't like Pokemon
They called
call
it an
DLC?
update.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I can't remember what the Daybreak.
Breaking Dawn? Daybreak?
Breaking Dawn,
Okay.
yeah.
Breaking Dawn. It's a Twilight book or something, right?
Lycanroc Breaking Dawn update. The update to the game, which you were forced to update, just remixed the already there outbreaks Added
Yeah.
a small storyline, but didn't add any new Pokemon, didn't add any new areas, didn't add any of that.
Was that the update that made the shiny hunting not as fun in the game, or was it like right after that update?
No, they updated it before. They fixed that real quick.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You could reset like an outbreak. and
Yeah,
then
you could
just
reset an
it as many
outbreak and
times as
go,
you
yeah,
want
no,
until the
they-
shiny showed up.
Suction cups, not a priority. You shiny hunting the way you want? How dare you? But there was no added Pokemon to Legends, right? You would think like, oh, why isn't Charizard in Legends? How could Charizard be cut? Maybe they'll add Charizard with like some DLC or something, and then Charizard never came. That treatment is never going to happen to Eevee. They're going to stick that fox, dog, cat thing in every game going forward. But going back to the balloon, I don't think the slightly whitish gray color on the balloon means flying type, or the fact they're in an air balloon means flying type, or because there was a Terra Eevee distribution. It just means Eevee. Normal type is gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Were there? So wait, I think I missed this image. Were there 9 colored balloons, and it was one for each?
It was one hot air balloon, and the hot air balloon itself had all of the color. It had like the yellow, blue,
Yeah.
pink.
Yeah, that's always the gray has always been, because like Eevee is one
That
of
is
those
Eevee.
things.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
been that. Like that's how it's always been. This is not
And then
new.
people were like, well, it's a hot air balloon. That must mean flying type. No, it's just in a hot air balloon. Look,
Yeah.
if there is a new Eevee in Legends ZA, it wouldn't be I told you so because of the hot air balloon. That is just like you have just been saying there's going to be a new Eevee for 20 some years, and you just happen to be right. Like if I just keep saying that we will get Sun and Moon remakes, if I just say that every year, I will eventually be right, because they will eventually remake Sun and Moon. But like to say the hot air balloon, that means there's going to be no. That does not mean there's going to be a new Eevee. It's just a hot air balloon promotional image.
I think
So-
that it's great that we've looped back to this point where 13 years later, because when Sylveon was first revealed, people thought it was going to be a flying type before
Yes.
they introduced fairy type as a new type. And we've now looped back to the point where everyone's like, it's going to be a flying type. Like I think what this shows is that people really like flying type Pokemon.
And
that's
potentially really want a flying type Eevee, but
yeah, it's got the ears for it. Could like Dragonair itself out there, and the ears fly, turn into wings, and there's your flying type Eevee.
I thought about this a lot more too, of like, I think Eevee has, I don't want to say I think Eevee has like the potential to disappoint, but I do think expectations for a new Eevee would be so high that it would be disappointing.
I see what
And
you're
when
saying.
you think about who this is for, I don't think it's for anyone except people who already like Eevee. And what I mean by that is, I think you fall into two camps. You either really like a specific Eevee evolution a lot, and by association, you just like the other Eevees or most of the other Eevees, or you just don't care about Eevee. And I fall into the camp of I don't care about Eevee. I just don't. If somebody asks me what my favorite Eevee evolution was, I have an answer. That answer is Sylveon. But Sylveon is not top 10, not top 20. I wouldn't even put Sylveon in the top 50 of my favorite Pokemon. I like Sylveon. I think it's fine. But I don't care like that much. And I don't think there would ever be an Eevee to be like, now I care about Eevee. I just don't think that will be it. Like for Charizard fans, you're either a Charizard fan or you probably think Charizard is overrated. And that's fine if you think Charizard is overrated. But I don't think like Mega Charizard X or Gigantamax Charizard all of a sudden been like, actually, you know what, guys? I was wrong. Charizard is really cool. Like, I just don't think that happens.
I think there is potential because sometimes people like specific types, and there is potential for an evolution for a new type, bringing in people who like that type that hadn't previously been included. That is a relatively small number of people, though.
I think that you end up with more people disappointed in it not being the type they wanted. I think the only way a new evolution happens is the same way it happened last time at this point in time.
New type.
Where if it was a new type, everyone would be so surprised by the new type that the new evolution wouldn't like bring as much disappointment. Whereas if there was a flying type, you'd have the camp of every other type that's not an evolution being like, why didn't it get this type?
Yeah.
Why is it that
Why
type?
why was there no dragon? Why was there no steel? Why was there no ground? Why was there no bug?
Yeah. So I really can't see them adding a new evolution unless they add a new type, and I don't think they're going to add a new type.
And I feel like, where do you stop? Do you add like a dragon Eevee evolution, and then all of a sudden, like, what about bug? What about ground? Like, where do you stop? Or because I don't think we're getting all of them right. It's been so long.
I said it one a month for the next 10 months.
But they could have done that. That would have been like the easiest hand me out ever. Is every time there's a new Pokemon game, we give you a new Eevee evolution, and that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that was more. I don't ever want to. I don't want to say we will never get a new Eevee evolution. Because I didn't think in a million years we would ever get a Basculin evolution, right? And we did. And Basculegion is really cool. Very cool.
Basculin had to die for Basculegion to be a thing.
As it should have. But I think Pokemon has realized, especially with the last couple games, that they can, instead of relying on older Pokemon, which I think they did very heavily in Gen 4. If you look at like Gen 4's Pokemon, it's like Electivire, Magmortar, Togekiss, Yanmega, Mamoswine. I think they've really knocked it out of the park with the newer designs and trying to get people in who haven't found a favorite Pokemon or haven't found something they could relate to, which kind of goes back to my like Eevee example of, I don't know if a new Eevee would capture somebody who doesn't already love Eevee versus something like a Mimikyu. Like Mimikyu became so popular. And you could maybe argue like, oh, Mimikyu is just like based off Pikachu. But I think Mimikyu kind of transcended that and became
its own thing.
Yeah. But Mimikyu kind of had that thing where it's like Pikachu, but it's like the anti-Pikachu at the same time, right?
So you're saying we need
like,
an anti-Eevee.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back on board.
But
even like
Ghost type evolution.
But I do wonder how much of Pawmi's success, because Pawmi is incredibly popular in Japan, like crazy. In Japan, just crazy popular in Japan. But they didn't do the thing they did with like Togedemaru or Dedenne or Plusleminun. No one likes Plusleminun.
I know somebody specifically in the Slack that if they hear this is going to be so sad that you said that.
You just don't like Hoenn.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's true. But Pawmi into Pawmo into Pawmot
Yeah.
was new.
Yes, it was. They're also so similar.
They're
Palmot
not.
just
They're-
is Palmo
they're-
standing up. Come
They're
on.
not that. They're not similar. You guys are crazy.
Effectively one Pokemon.
I will not take this Palmy slander on this podcast. That's like saying Vanillush and Vanillite are similar just because it's just two ice creams and
No, because that would be like Diglett and Dugtrio. You can visually see a difference between those Pokemon. The whole Palmy line, effectively one Pokemon.
If Palmot had two heads, we wouldn't have this conversation. I totally understand it.
Yes, I agree.
All right. I mean, well, you need Palmot to be like a Hydrapple. You just need as many heads as possible.
Uh-huh.
The Tinkaton line is another example of a Pokemon that kind of really shot up to instant fan favorites for people. Which I think, again, I think that we have definitely moved away from this Gen 4 era of Pokemon thinking of let's just give a bunch of Gen 1 Pokemon evolutions or Gen 2 Pokemon evolutions and let's introduce 2 more Eevees. And I really think that new families of Pokemon are more impactful than let's go backwards. They still do go backwards from time to time with like the Dunsparce, but
True. I mean, they're very big on the form changes, right? Or on the regional forms now. Like that's
Are they?
they're
That be- 'cause
consistent.
Scarlet and
They're
Violet
pretty
had, like, none.
consistently- Well,
yeah, Paldean Wooper
yeah.
okay.
and
Go on.
Paldean Tauros.
Okay, too.
And that's it, right? Was it just those two?
Yeah.
But the Paldean Wooper evolved. Paldean Tauros had three different forms, technically, within that,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, again, another super popular Pokemon, Clodsire. Mm-hmm. Incredibly popular.
Yeah, what I mean is like, I feel like they would lean more toward regional forms. I mean, like we saw that obviously in Legends Arceus with like evolution, the starter evolutions having a Hisuian form at their final evolution, and then a few other Hisuian Pokemon as well, and then continuing into Paldea. I just mean like I feel like rather than them going back to give a bunch of older Pokemon evolutions, sure they did that in Paldea as well, but they also leaned into regionals, and I feel like they would continue to do that. I guess it'll be a little bit different since this is technically well, we don't know where it's taking place, but I mean it's Kalos, so it's not like where
We
Hisui
kind of
was,
know
like,
where we
Yeah.
do know where it's taking place.
Well, like I just mean like with Arceus, right? Like sure it's in Sinnoh, but it's called Hisui, and so then they have the Hisuian Pokemon because it was from a long time ago, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
even
Yeah.
though it was in Sinnoh, their regional forms are considered something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Do you think there was no Valentine's Day Furfrou in Pokemon Go because they're doing new Furfrous? Do you think there's going to be new Furfrous?
no.
I don't think there will be new ones, but it's possible there will be a focus on it, and there is a small chance that they didn't do the Valentine's Day Furfrou and Go because of that. I won't say that's an impossible thing.
Was the Heart Furfrou was not exclusive to Go. You could get Heart Furfrou in the game, right?
Yeah.
I'm almost-
think so.
If there's one thing
think
I've
so.
never really
That.
done in main series Pokemon games is change my Furfrou. It was just never like it's just like never a priority for me.
Right. Yeah. Did Legends Arceus didn't not that the TA has to be like Arceus, but they didn't give any Pokemon evolutions that didn't have evolutions in the past, right? Like we just got form changes and then
No, they absolutely did.
What do you mean, like Basculegion? Or Weirdeer?
Oh,
Deer.
right, because
Yeah.
the regional form got right. Sorry, so they made the regional form and then that got the evolution. I mean, like
No,
there-
Weirdeer.
Because Stantler's still Stantler.
because Stantler is still Stantler, right?
And-
It's not a regional Stantler.
White Stripe Basculin is new, yes.
And Scyther into Cleavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scyther and Cleavor.
And regular
okay, so
Petalil into Hisuian
Yep.
into
Lilligant.
Hisui
Yeah.
and Lilligant.
That
But
was absolutely something they did.
Hisuian Growlithe into Hisuian Arcanine. Mm-hmm. And then regular
right.
Ursaring into Ursaluna. And then we got another Ursaluna on top of that in Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah. Gee. Okay. Because I was just thinking, like, what if Furfrou got an evolution?
Or a
Mega
pre-evolution.
Furfrou.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mega Evolution, you want to talk about starters? Like, I'm still very convinced it's just going to be Fennekin, Chespin, and Froakie, and they're all
Just
going to
them?
get Mega Evolutions.
Are they going to get any type of final evolution change before that, or is it just going to be Mega Evolution? Is their new thing?
I
Like,
think Mega
in-
Evolution is their new thing. I think it's
Okay.
so weird that, what was it? Gen 1 Pokemon got Mega, and Gen 3
And Gen
Pokemon
3.
got Mega, and the Gen 6 didn't get anything?
Yep. Yep. I think that's a pretty good theory. I think people would
I'm sure
Love
there'll be
a
other
Mega
starters in the game.
Greninja.
Yeah, that's the thing. The starter selection probably might not be the
Those
same.
three.
Like, there's no way
It could
there's
be.
not Gen 1 and Gen 3 starters somewhere in ZA, since they do get Mega. Unless the
I don't know
assumption
about
is
that.
not
I don't know
all the
if I
Megas
agree. Yeah,
would be.
I don't know if I agree that all the Megas would be in the game. Because the Legends game that we have so far is very thematic and very much ties all of the Pokemon that are present into the theme of the game, and I don't know if all the Megas we have would do that. Like, I don't know if Mewtwo is going to be... I wouldn't expect Mewtwo to be in ZA.
Oh, since we're in predictions thing, just literally because you said that, and I will definitely forget. I think Mewtwo will be the Pokemon Sleep legendary that they talk about on Pokemon Day.
Really?
That's the biggest card they could play, yeah.
There was something about something psychic is getting added to the game,
Okay.
and if they're going to announce legendaries on Pokemon Day for Pokemon Sleep, maybe Cresselia? I don't think Cresselia is nearly as exciting as Mewtwo.
If they do
like-
both Mewtwo and Mew.
Lake Trio?
Ain't no one coming back to Pokemon Sleep for Mesprit, Azelf, and Uxie. I think Mewtwo would for sure be an actual exciting announcement for Sleep.
Yeah.
And
I guess so.
I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to be Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, because that's just
No,
so
same.
close to Entei, Raikou, Suicune, and we already have those. Mm-hmm. And you can maybe do Regice, Regirock, Registeel, but I don't think those are that exciting either.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, going back to like the Lake Trio thing, they wouldn't want to have three Pokemon that are all the same type that are going to come out. Like, you know, it wouldn't be like, oh, we're going to have 3 events and it's all the same
Yeah.
Pokemon for those 3 events. I don't know, Mewtwo. I mean, Mewtwo, obviously, I think Mewtwo is obviously incredibly popular. Like, yeah, I like Mewtwo. That'd be great.
Not
but
incredibly popular. It is the most popular legendary Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's fine. It is. I do love Mewtwo. I really do. But I feel like they would do another trio.
We don't have any evidence for that, though.
No, I just feel like it keeps it like it can extend out the
The game for a
the
year.
game for some time by having
Yeah.
like, we're introducing these 3 and they're going to fall within these 3 periods of time versus like, we have Mewtwo, here it is, now it's gone.
I think I think they could do. We have Mewtwo coming to celebrate Pokemon Day, and then they have enough time to then do something big for their 2-year anniversary, which is July.
Yeah, okay.
Because I would suspect we would get an island as well.
Right.
Eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And a level cap increase. And they've been pretty good at adding ingredients, which I didn't think would like add more gameplay, but like more dishes, more ingredients is like nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mewtwo would for sure be in ZA though.
Only if we had something like space-time distortions, which I don't think is gonna happen.
Yeah. I don't want to get too hung up on like what specifically would be in ZA because nothing has changed in the last year.
Yeah, we have no new news yet. Hopefully we
Right.
will soon.
Okay, so besides ZA stuff, what other Pokemon Day things do you guys want to see?
I think we'll get another special set in TCG Pocket. I think. I forget. Did they? Their note didn't mention another set coming. The last thing they said was the set coming in January. That was Space Time Smackdown, right?
Did we talk about the special booster pack?
The what?
Oh, maybe we didn't. So when the Chimchar stuff got added to Pocket, apparently people found that there's supposed to be a special booster pack that gives you a guaranteed 2-star, I think. And that was supposed to be in line with Pokemon Day, where everyone will get a booster pack that's guaranteed a 2-star. Because I think 3-star is
Spoilers
immersive.
for Pocket.
But who knows if that's actually coming?
Yeah, a 2-star of like a set we already have, or
I think it was Genetic Apex.
interesting.
Is 2 stars the rainbow one, right?
It could be a rainbow. Yeah, it can be a rainbow.
Yeah. Because 3-star is immersive, and then Crown is obviously Crown.
Yeah, but 2-star can be rainbow, or it can be full art. The full art.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
full art.
The like. Yeah, not the illustration, but the other full art. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
But do they do a new set and just give us all a booster pack as well? No, I'm sure they'll throw in some tokens too.
Like I think
new
new set. I think it's
Pokemon
going to be announcement on Pokemon Day with like releasing the new set the next day. I think we're going to get a new set right at the tail end of February there.
I think a new set is pretty likely.
Yeah.
The question is how big is that set?
I think it'll be like Mythical Island size set. 60 cards, 68 cards. Not exactly 68 cards, but right in that.
Well, I mean that would make
somewhere.
sense because then you could put like Flareon EX and Vaporeon EX and the new flying Eevee EX. Like, yeah, I think. You just sprinkle all those in. I don't think they would announce a flying type Eevee because that would diminish their prismatic evolution sales. They'd be like, well, now I can't get all the Eevees.
I was actually going to say that I think that if they were going to introduce a new evolution, they wouldn't have done prismatic evolutions like right before introducing a new evolution.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to collect all the Eevees, and all of a sudden there's a new one, and it doesn't fit into that set. And how quickly do you produce those cards? And
Yep.
I think a lot of people are forgetting about this, but I think for sure we get a segment on Pokemon Day that is Unite focused of that new Unite mode that I played in Hawaii.
Oh gosh.
Oh, yes.
See how people
Yeah.
listening, they're like, I forgot about that. I've
Yep.
not seen anyone talk about that, but that new mode is supposed to come out in spring,
Hmm.
and they showed it at Hawaii on stage, and they haven't talked about it since. I think this is the time they talk about it. And I don't know how well Unite is doing. Like I do stand by that Unite is probably one of those games where if it completely fell off in America and completely flopped and no one played it, I think it would still be fine in China or overseas. I think it would still like live on. I don't think like it needs the American audience to keep it surviving. And I'm not going to come on this podcast and be like, Unite's dead. I'm sure it's fine. But there's not a single video game out there that doesn't want to increase their player base, that doesn't want to get people back into their game, that doesn't want to, keep that game going. And I would assume that new game mode would be their attempt to do that. And what is the best way to advertise that is probably Pokemon Day, where everyone's watching.
Yeah. That makes sense. You said it was a pretty fun game mode too, right? When you the little that you played of it, like because you played it.
I
at
liked it.
Worlds, and it was different enough and fun and everything.
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know if Unite would ever be for me because it has such a very easy to play, which is good. Very high skill level. Also good for some people, but Unite keeps adding new Pokemon. They keep selling $40 skins. They
Yep.
They added a Psyduck or the pink suit with pink tinted glasses. It's the best costume of any Pokemon ever. If you haven't seen this yet, go look at the Psyduck. It's got a pink suit on. It's amazing. Just gonna say the costumes in Pokemon Unite are
they're very good.
great. They're great.
They're very, very good. Yeah, I think to run through all the basics, right? You get Pokemon Sleep news. Maybe they announce a legendary. The
Mewtwo.
rumors are psychic related. So
I feel like it would be Mew over Mewtwo, honestly. Like I feel like it's time for them to introduce
Yeah.
their first mythical now. I know we just only did 3 legendaries, but there's been some time. I feel like they could introduce Mew in some way over Mewtwo right now.
a Mew could transform. They did change that ability to transform for Ditto.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. Does Mewtwo sleep? Is Mewtwo like able to sleep?
Good questions.
Yeah. He was sleeping in a test tube for a long time, right?
Yeah, but he's not in. That'd be weird if he's in a test tube and sleep.
Stasis and sleep aren't quite the same thing.
So we get our Pokemon Sleep news. I think for sure we get that Pokemon Unite news of when that is coming, what that actually entails, maybe any tweaks. I haven't been following the Chinese version of that, which has already existed for a couple months, so I don't know like what has changed or hasn't changed. You have Cafe Remix, which they could skip completely.
Nah,
But
we get something tiny.
if there was a game that doesn't have much life left, I would like to assume it's Cafe Remix, but I don't know. When we talk
Yeah.
about how like greedy Niantic is or how greedy Pokemon Unite is, still stand by Cafe Remix blows both of those out of the water.
And I think there's pretty consistently been Cafe Remix news on Pokemon
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah, it's always quick. There's never some big Cafe Remix announcement, other maybe than when they went to Cafe Remix. But I feel like there's consistently Cafe Remix like updates. There's consistently events that are happening. Because I always see the images of them adding new Pokemon or new styles, things like that. So I do feel like that game is like pretty consistently updated.
They're
And
trying to
again, if it
compete
didn't
with
have
Niantic.
700 pop-ups or notifications to buy things before playing a 60-second game, I think I'd be all in on playing it. But
It could just be that the cost and development of that game is just so low. I mean, it's just following the Candy Crush method.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think we all know how popular Candy Crush has
Yeah.
been over time. That I don't know. I think that game is like. I don't think that game is going anywhere, honestly.
Pocket. I do think Pocket will be big for Pokemon Day. I think they'll spend some time on that, and there's no reason not to think that, especially since Pocket has made, I don't know, $500 million,
Yeah.
and they probably want more people to play that. You know what they didn't talk about last year was Masters. There was no Masters anything last year, but there was still the get 100 free polls. Which is like weird that they just didn't spend 20 seconds on that last year to be like, hey, Masters exists and you can get 100 free polls and you should open the app. Like it just feels very weird that was completely skipped last year.
Last year felt kind of weird in a few different ways. Last year's was very fast paced.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a big part of that, I think, was like, well, they did still do the teaser for ZA, so it wasn't like that. It was nothing in that regard, but maybe they just wanted to get through it quick because they knew there was no new big game coming, so they were like, let's just get this over with, like, get it done. And then
Yeah, I just
pick
don't
back
feel
up.
like, why don't you just tap on every one of your games? Because like, again, I don't even remember if they did Cafe Remix, but every time they do Cafe Remix, it's only like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I can't. It's their own presentation. It's not. It's not like, I don't know, guys. Can't do 19 minutes and 48 seconds. That's too long. Got to get it under 18. Like it's your own. It's your own broadcast.
Yep.
I do think we're gonna get. I still stand by that Legends is going to be like fall, like October, November-ish, maybe even September. But I do feel like we're going to get something in the summer. And the reason I say that is because Sleep was in the summer, Go was in the summer, Unite was in the summer. I'm probably not thinking of something else, but I guess you could maybe argue that the Scarlet and Violet DLC should have been in the summer because it was a summer DLC.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. The original intent.
Yeah.
I think they do like that June and July time frame. And I don't think it's a coincidence that 3 mobile games I just named came out in July-ish. I
Yeah.
don't know, though, is if they do something in between from now until Legends ZA, is that going to be another mobile game? Or is that going to be a console spin-off that would be like new Pokemon Snap, Mystery Dungeon, Ranger,
Yeah.
etc.?
So, because that also kind of makes me feel like, so last year we got Pocket in like in the fall, obviously, but when was the last time we got a new summer spin-off game?
Sleep.
Of the ones
This
you
would
just
be
mentioned.
2 years.
Sleep would have been 2 years ago in the summer. And then I'm just wondering, like, would they come out with two years in a row? Because I feel like next year with the 30th anniversary, they would definitely do something like a spin-off in the summer, or so it's like, I feel like they wouldn't come out with 2 mobile games 2 years in a row like that, maybe, or 3 now, because it'd be like Pocket and then this, whatever this is, and then the next one. So I feel like whatever we'll get will be like a Switch release, like you're saying, like one of those kinds of games that is then remade and then comes out in the summer. And
Yeah.
then next year we would get like another mobile game, like that's coincides with like the 30th anniversary.
Do we need
of
more mobile
Pokemon.
games? I'm feeling pretty good on the number of mobile games at this point.
Yeah,
I have enough slices.
I guess that then goes in with like I think that whatever they release, if they do release something in the summer, it would be another Switch title and not a
Hear me
mobile
out.
game.
Pokemon Quest 2.
Yeah.
Here,
Everything that we
Yes.
haven't yet.
yeah, everything from the Chinese version that we haven't had.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I actually think is a more interesting conversation than whether or not you're getting a new Eevee Evolution. Is that whether or not ZA comes out in 2 weeks or 2 months or at the end of the year, we know going into this August for the competitive scene that there will be 2 restricted Pokemon. And from the end of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to the end of Sword and Shield to the end of this game, they always end with 2 restricted Pokemon. And before that, I guess you could throw in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. So for 4 games in a row. And we know that a Pokemon life cycle is 3 years. So realistically, Generation 10 should have been this year. If you are looking at every 3 years we get a new generation, and somebody's going to say, well, actually, from Generation 1 to Generation 2 it was 4 years in Japan. Yes, I know. That's fine. It's about every 3 years. And if Legends ZA is similar to Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee and Legends Arceus, as in this game is not competitively focused, which they said for both of those, we have nothing going into 2026 for that August, competitive-wise. And I don't think you can drag the corpse of Scarlet and Violet a whole nother year and say we're going to keep this same competitive. You can.
So
you
do
can
you
start,
think they're finally going to do that competitive only game?
possibly.
Is that where you're going with this?
Yes, that's where I was going. Is if the spin-off or non-mobile game this summer could be. This is I don't even believe this when I'm saying it for the record, but that could be a new Pokemon Stadium / Battle Revolution / what was the other one before Battle Revolution? I don't remember. Maybe there wasn't.
I think it was
just
mostly
Battle-
Stadium and Battle Revolution.
Yeah.
And the sequels.
Yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah, the sequels. Because that would buy you a year. You can do all the bans you want in Scarlet and Violet. You can say like no Paradox Pokemon. You could even maybe say 3 restricted instead of 2 restricted. When you're trying to grow your competitive audience, and they've done a very good job at growing their competitive audience, I just don't think you can get another year out of Scarlet and Violet. I just don't. And I don't think we need and maybe ZA is competitive. Maybe it's 1 year of ZA competitive. So your options are you drag Scarlet and Violet for another year over the finish line until you get to Gen 10. You do competitive ZA, which the last Legends didn't have abilities. It didn't have held items. How do Megas work? Megas were already not great competitively. I think Megas are fantastic design-wise. They're not great competitively. You have a pretty limited Pokedex. Or the last, or before you get to like a stadium, or Generation 10 is coming out in the spring. And so that problem is fixed because now you have that game lined up for August, which then goes back to, are they going to release ZA and then give us a teaser for Generation 10? I do think a teaser for Generation 10 is like, it's at least coming. of like something new 2020. Like they don't even, it doesn't even have to be a trailer. It just has to be a splash screen of like, we're celebrating our 30th Generation 10. So you either have drag Scarlet and Violet, put competitive into ZA, Generation 10 is actually going to come out before summer of next year, or the thing I think is less likely to happen, but would be fun, there's a competitive spin-off game, Battle Simulator, that will come out and buy Game Freak a year.
Okay.
Buying a year meaning that you don't have to worry about spring. You can now have Generation 10 in the fall.
Yeah, but I feel like if they're going to release a competitive focused game, that it would potentially be helpful to lean hard into that moving forward as well, and kind of separate out the competitive aspects from the main series game and keep.
I don't think they should ever do that. I think that does not grow your brand. I think I know people have talked about like just separate out competitive, but one, why would you want less video game for your money? If I'm buying a $60 video game, I can shiny hunt, I can play through a story, I can do competitive, I can do raids, I can do all of this. Why do I want to spend $60 on that? And then my future games, I have to spend another $60 for. I think that is just anti-consumer of removing a core feature of the game and making you rebuy it again. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a point in time where people go, maybe I want to try competitive, but there's a $60 price tag in my way. Whereas I can just do that in Scarlet and Violet. And I think a lot of people get into that because it is accessible. I do think there is value in a Stadium-like game at this point, but not in the sense of like, well, let's separate it out.
And I don't know if I see there being value unless you separate it out.
I mean, there's value in the value in Stadium was the single player mode and like unlocking Mewtwo, and I think for the majority of people listening to this, the value of Stadium was the mini games.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I remember those games for.
Yep.
But what you're saying is that it would be helpful to put competitive in there, and I'm not sure I agree, unless they're going to keep competitive in there. And maybe it would be a free-to-play kind of thing? But I'm not sure how I could see microtransactions working with that in any sort of good way.
I think the only reason it works, and the only reason I would even bring it up, is purely nostalgia. Mm-hmm. And they could, if they named it Pokemon Stadium 3, and they threw in 20 mini games, and they threw in like a single player ladder mode, or they threw in what some people were missing, which is what is it? The Battle Factory. That would be like somewhat appealing.
And you're thinking this would replace Scarlet and Violet at Worlds?
Yeah.
I have a really hard time imagining that.
I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe it either. I'm just talking. I think the thing I do believe is you just cannot get another year out of Scarlet and Violet. Could they do it? Yes. Sure. Because there's nowhere else for competitive players to go.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, they are on a timeline.
Yeah.
And these pieces have to fall a certain way. So you make all of your competitive players suffer for another year, and you don't encourage new players to play or sign up. Or ZA is battle focus, which it could be.
Or you release Gen 10 on Pokemon Day in 2026.
I don't think that they do. So this is what I was kind of looking up while you guys were talking, while you two were talking about this. I think I bring things around to like the TCG as well, and how they release sets in the TCG. And for Legends Arceus, they got a year of TCG sets out of Legends Arceus. Like that, the sets were like related to Legends Arceus. They got a year out of that until until Scarlet and Violet came out in. So the Scarlet and Violet set came out a few months after the game came out. So it came out in March of 23, was when Scarlet and Violet base set came out, and
For
the
US.
for US, and the first like Legends Arceus set came out in February of 2022. So they got a little over a year out of that with the TCG. And I don't think that with Legends ZA that they would like want to move so quickly into whatever the Gen 10 stuff is for TCG wise, that I think they would still separate that out more. And if they did a release where they went so late into the year to release Legends ZA and then release Gen 10 in say like February or March of 2026, then I feel like the TCG for that would be a lot shorter than they would probably want to like drag out what they can before they're jumping into the next generation of TCG stuff.
Well, it's not like the TCG drives everything else.
No, but they all drive each other.
Yeah,
and I
they
feel
do.
like
That's the
I
thing.
feel like they are able to, from a business perspective, they're able to get so much out of that game, and then in the TCG wise, like out of Legends Arceus, they were able to get so much out of that TCG wise. I don't think they would want to cut that short for another game, and I don't think that they would
could,
couple them
though,
up.
because I think that they would get a whole lot more out of having the new game out than just cutting short the Legends game in the TCG.
But I
would
think they would
agree with you, Hannah, if Legends came out last year. Because if they were on their original timeline, Legends probably should have came out last year, and then Gen 10 should have came out this year.
Going back,
I feel like Gen 10 aligning with the anniversary is
But
think they've.
but it'll be the end of the anniversary by that time. If Gen 10 doesn't come out in spring, if it comes out in fall, like as a fall game, it would be the end of the anniversary.
It'll
Yeah,
still
I just
be
think
the same
that
calendar year.
the TCG drives a lot of money for them, and I feel like they would not shorten a generation, or not a generation, but like an aspect of the TCG that would be shortened. Like I think they can get 4 or 5 sets out of it, and I feel like they wouldn't shorten that to then jump into the Gen 10 stuff quicker than they could with it being like, I just don't see the games being that close together between those two things.
So if you believe that ZA is not a competitive focused game, just based off Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, and based off Legends Arceus, it coming out, whether it was now or 3 months ago in November, that would mean that Gen 10 comes out at the end of this year, and now our competitive situation is solved for next year. So it doesn't matter when ZA came out. The thing that mattered is when does Gen 10 come out, and if it was supposed to be at the end of this year, which I actually think we had Cerebi on the show, and he believed that Gen 10 would come out at the end of this year. I'd have to find that clip.
Yeah.
But it fits the 3-year timeline, and it fits the competitive timeline. So ZA, in my eyes, was never going to be a competitive game. And so it doesn't matter when it came out. And if they pushed everything because of people rightfully being unhappy with Scarlet and Violet, and we know for sure they pushed the DLC for Scarlet and Violet to try to make that better.
Not for sure. We're just like 97% certain.
I like those odds. That they took more time with ZA, either one, because they needed to build in a competitive focus thing, and they wanted to make sure it was right. But then, how much does that push Gen 10? Because if ZA comes out in the summer, let's say ZA is the summer game, I would then feel way better about Gen 10 coming out in the spring, which fixes that issue of next year's Worlds.
Yep.
But if ZA is coming out in fall, which I still think, I think the spring is more... I don't think the spring is as likely, and you would think that they would want a full year cycle like they did with Legends Arceus to sell as many copies as possible, to then line up something with the anime, to then do a year's worth of TCG cards, especially if this game has new Pokemon. You could be like, well, BDSP was really close to Legends Arceus. Like, BDSP didn't have any new Pokemon. They don't need BDSP for... They don't need BDSP for an anime cycle. They don't need BDSP for a card cycle, because they can just... They've done it time and time again. It was like, look at TCG Pocket. It was Sinnoh focused. They didn't need a game to do that. Like, the TCG will pick a random focus and they'll go with that. But when a new game comes out, they immediately switch that new game's focus, and then they'll pepper in, like, let's do an all Eevee set just to sell some copies.
Yeah. But if Legends ZA ended up being a summer release, then I could definitely see Gen 10 being a spring of next year release, because there's just more time there.
I agree.
There's just more time there. But if Legends ZA is a November release, I just don't see them then jumping into a brand new generation 4 months later.
I for sure think they want a full year of marketing for Gen 10. Like, Scarlet and Violet will outsell Sword and Shield. And Sword and Shield are the, second best-selling Pokemon game of all time?
Yep.
Like, they figured it out. It took them 20-some years to figure it out. There is no way that Gen 10... They don't want Gen 10 to be the second best-selling Pokemon game of all time. They took everything they learned with Sword and Shield, they applied it to Scarlet and Violet, and even though Scarlet and Violet was borderline bad, frame rate-wise and graphical-wise, it will pass Sword and Shield. And Sword and Shield has its own problems, too. So, like...
Trees.
The trees. So I think that these games theoretically could be close together, but I don't think they want them to be close together. I think both of these games have legs, and the only issue with the machine right now is August of next year. And if whatever comes out fixes that, whether that's competitive in ZA, or we're just going to deal with Scarlet and Violet for another year, or actually this game is going to come out before August, I think that ultimately fixes that machine. But I think there are way better options than let's just keep dragging Scarlet and Violet for another year.
Yeah, I just can't see them adding like competitive to Legends ZA to make it only a year-long thing, and then Gen 10 comes out and now they're moving, because Gen 10's gonna, like, I feel like Gen 10's gonna have competitive, like,
oh yeah,
and so it's like I don't see them breaking like the 3 year and then like 1 year of this into another 3 years. I feel like they're gonna want to continue that like pattern going that they have, because that is what a lot of people keep come back to and like are getting people into it. I don't think like they would break that up right now.
Well, they've already kind of broken it to some extent. But the question of whether it will stay in Scarlet and Violet until Gen 10 is the big one. I also don't really see them... I definitely don't see them putting competitive in ZA. I don't think that's the kind of game it's going to be, based on the games that we have and are relating it to, and based on the very little information we've been told about ZA. And I don't see a competitive side game replacing Scarlet and Violet's competitive at Worlds, unless it's something that keeps hold of the competitive moving forward.
I didn't think there would ever be a market for a new Pokemon Snap, and I was definitely proven wrong on that. Although, like, Pokemon Snap in reality didn't sell as well as you would think for as many
Right.
people being like, oh my gosh, Pokemon Snap was my favorite Pokemon game. Like that game sold I think less than 2 million copies, maybe around the 2 million mark, which is a lot, but not a lot for a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot for a game existing, not a lot for a Pokemon game. Also, like, just an absolutely gorgeous game. Just beautiful to look at. And then you like this gorgeous, beautiful game. It's on rails, so obviously a lot easier to build. Selling 2 million, and then, you know, Scarlet and Violet, not a very pretty game. 26 million. Just I've never been a big graphic person. Like, graphics in my eyes, as long as the game is fun, I don't really care if it looks kind of bad. But that game did change my perspective of, man, nostalgia's really powerful, and they could definitely do a Pokemon Stadium 3 with just a bunch of mini games and rental teams, and that would be good enough. And just like Snap, they give it 1 or 2 updates and move on.
I think it would be a successful game, but I don't think it would take the place of competitive at Worlds.
I agree with you. The same. Like, I don't think it like, because the people that are, there's a different level there, right? Like, yes, a lot of people might buy a Stadium and it's nostalgia and like there's fun stuff to do. Then you have like the competitive scene, and I feel like that is different. I just don't feel like it would have the strength there in that way.
I'm almost positive Battle Revolution was used at a Worlds. I think it was the Florida Worlds before it really took off. It does buy them time, and it does fill that void of nostalgia that, like, if there was any time to release a Pokemon Stadium, like, this would be the time to release a Pokemon Stadium, because they actually would need it to fill a void that they currently have. And they could put specific rules up, right? They could be like, these are allowed, these are not allowed. We can do mega battles. We could do Dynamax battles. We can do this. More importantly, I think there's like a single player aspect that I think people gravitate towards, of like a battle tower, which Scarlet and Violet was missing. I'm gonna go on record. I don't think ZA is gonna have a battle tower. I don't think that existed in Lumio City. There aren't a lot of tall buildings. There is a minigame aspect. But I do think there's a lot of unanswered questions about next year's Worlds, which I think have more weight to it than just some random person on Twitter saying, like, look at this post I found on 4chan that says we're supposed to get 30 more Mega Evolutions. Like, there's no weight in that. We have no proof. It's just a 4chan post, right? And we already saw last year that they were all wrong. And I think the actual questions you should be asking is this World's question, and that lines up with, you know, TCG and the anime and everything else they're doing. That, I think, gives you more insight than just some random post. But also, because we're going too long, I don't think we're getting black and white remakes this year. I don't know why that. Well, I know why that is a point of conversation. Because as long as you say it every year, you'll eventually be right. Black and white remakes.
I also don't think we're getting black and white remakes. But it is weird that they're just dropping a black and white set in the summer that like literally just features the 156 Pokemon. That's like not a thing that happens typically.
Yeah, we're gonna get the spin-off game. We're gonna get is Dream Radar. It's gonna use AR and AI. I'm sure. I don't get how you. First off, Ilka is the thing I want most from Pokemon Day is Pokemon Home to be updated to actually like not be a 5-year-old app. But Ilka's working on Pokemon Sleep. Maybe they're working on a Gen 5 remake. I don't think anyone wants that. But I don't know how you don't have a Pokemon game in 2024, and then all of a sudden you're expecting Gen 5 remakes and Legends ZA, and the 30th anniversary is supposed to be Gen 10. What timeline do people think they're on where we can just pop out three?
Hold on. The same timeline that happened where BDSP came out, and then 3 months later Legends came out, and then 9 months later Gen 9 came out. It's literally the same
and they
timeline.
were all bad.
Legends Arceus is
Legends
like one of
was Legends is kind of beloved at this point.
Legends, first off, people have really strong nostalgia glasses already on Legends. Like
I don't know. People enjoyed Legends from the get-go.
Yeah, go back. I would challenge people to go back and play it right now. I don't think it's as good. I like Legends a lot. I'm not saying Legends is a bad game. That game is not a perfect Pokemon game. That game is not as good as you think. The reason that Legends was able to be done is because it's a small game. Walk from one end of Scarlet and Violet to the other. Even Blueberry Academy. Go from one end of Blueberry Academy to the other. Go to like Alabaster Islands or whatever that place is called. It is so small. All of those areas are so small. That Pokedex is so small. There are 7 battles in that entire video game, and 5 of them are against Volo with his Togepi.
For me,
there are like no battles.
Right now,
there are no Pokemon to catch. The areas are so tiny. It's a good game, but it is such a small Pokemon game.
But I assume that ZA also will be that way. I don't think
so?
that ZA is... Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a giant game.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be giant like Scarlet and Violet. I do think it's going to be bigger than Legends.
I think it'll be bigger than
we have
Legends.
Anything to go off of for that.
Only that, like, I feel like Legends was their first foray into, like, what an open world game would be. Because they, like, were like, okay, you don't get to just travel from, like, the base camp and go there, but like once you were like you go to that spot and then you're in that spot, and it was like very like what Scarlet Violet became, like it was that
first foray was the wild area. This was
their
the
second
next
foray
step.
into that step where it was like, okay, you can see where they're going, right? Okay, so yeah, let's say wild area was their first step, and you're like, okay, I can see what they're getting toward, and then Legends Arceus was more of that, and then Scarlet Violet. I don't think ZA is gonna I don't think it's gonna go back from that. I think it's gonna continue with that. So I do feel like it's gonna be bigger than Arceus, but I don't think it's gonna be nearly as big as Scarlet and Violet.
But if it's not supposed to be, I don't think it's gonna be a giant game. But again, they announced it last year. It's been a full year, not a peep out of them. So like, did they just start it? What's the deal? Why does it need this much time if it's not that big of a game? Again, I think Legends is a good game, but I think it is such a tiny and small Pokemon game, and it does do some things new, like the catching. But there are a lot of things about that game that I don't think hold up. Why does this game have fall damage? How does it make that better? Why does every Pokemon want to attack me? Like,
what do you think would happen if you went out into the actual wild around a bunch of animals and tried to throw balls at them? You don't think every one of them would want to attack you?
I played Scarlet and Violet, which Scarlet and Violet has like 800 Pokemon. Legends Arceus has 240. Like,
okay.
It's a dramatically bigger game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
what is the argument here? That also came out in the timeline. This is also a game that came out in that timeline that you were saying like doesn't exist. Legends and then Gen 9.
Yeah, like this timeline did happen. That's why people are thinking
okay,
it could
I'm
happen
gonna back
again,
up
but I
and
don't
say I don't think black and white
remakes. Yeah.
I don't expect black and white remakes either. I really don't. I'm just saying like we did have a timeline where a remake came out, a Legends came out, and then another big Pokemon game came out.
And I'm reminding you that in that timeline, 1 out of those 3 games were okay. BDSP didn't even open properly on launch, and Legends and Scarlet and Violet barely to this day runs at 15 frames a second.
I will maintain that Scarlet and Violet are good Pokemon games. other
like
than
them.
the fact that they don't run well. I think that they are good Pokemon games that just have visuals and running speed that
Scarlet
really
and
make that
Violet
hard.
could have easily
Um,
been everyone's like top 3 Pokemon
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it looked like a game that was made in the time period that it did.
And hey, I'm
And
not
if it
saying
ran
that.
at
Yes.
30 frames a second. I didn't even
Yeah.
think people would be that upset, like falling through the floor every now and then, if it actually ran and looked good. Because I play other non-Pokemon games all the time, and I'll like fall through the floor, or I'll get stuck on something, and it's really not that big of a deal. Like, but because the game ran so poorly and because it looks so bad, that was just like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
icing on top of like, oh, also, sometimes I just get kicked out of a raid and my screen goes black for 3 minutes, and then eventually I get placed back in Paldea.
Yeah.
I don't think Black and White are going to get remade. And if they do remake, I don't know that they're going to turn on. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, like, I understand.
I will say
like,
I don't expect
the
those remakes
timeline.
anytime soon, and I hope Ilka isn't in charge of them. So that's not really predictions. That is hoping things don't happen.
That's a prediction, like that we're not going to see those things.
Yeah,
one
I think-
day. Hopefully.
I think there's no question they bit off more than they could chew during that time frame. And I guess you could say I'm glad that there was the pushback and there was the critical feedback of these are not good. These could be better. We expect better from you. And I think everyone listening to the show probably agree, like, you can do better. And ideally, you go, well, there was no game last year, and the ZA should be this year. And you look at that and you go, they're listening. If all of a sudden we get Black and White remakes, Johto remakes, Legends ZA, Legends Arceus 2, Hey You Pikachu 3, and Generation 10 in the next 12 months, you can't. Then all of a sudden you go, you're not listening. You
Right.
didn't
And I think-
learn anything.
And I think this is part of why I definitely don't think there's going to be a side game taking over the competitive from Scarlet and Violet, because that feels like part of that you're not listening to me, because a lot of effort would have to go into any competitive that would take over from Scarlet and Violet before Gen 10.
Yeah. I agree. I really do think that we're actually going to get, like, my prediction for what's going to happen with the competitive scene is I think we're going to get another however long out of Scarlet and Violet until they bring us up to Gen 10 for that competitive. Like, I really do think, like, something is about it's going to change this year, whether it's another game breaking in there to break that up or getting an extra year out of the current game. Something's going to change. And I think there's more, the likelihood is that they're going to keep the competitive scene with Scarlet and Violet. That they've spent more time on ZA, and I think it's going to be a smallish game, but done really well. And then I think they're going to feed into Gen 10 next year later than sooner in the year. And I think that's probably the most boring timeline, but I kind of think that's like what it is going to be. I really do think like things got delayed here and there. Things changed up just since even like 2020. I think things changed up, but I really do think like Legends ZA this year, Gen 10 late next year, they're just going to drag that corpse of Scarlet
They
and
needed to
Violet
take
for
this
another
time
year.
to do the hey, we're listening part,
Yeah.
and that means that this is probably going to have to carry over for competitive for another year longer than
And some kind of
normal.
side game in the summer that is not related to competitive or anything like that.
No,
Just something like that.
I think I'm okay with any side game that isn't Mystery Dungeon. I just don't like. I just
Pokemon
don't like
Ranger
Mystery
would
Dungeon
be
games.
fun.
I've never
Pokemon
played
Ranger would
Ranger.
be
It's
fun.
one of the one games I've never played, but ideally you have ZA this year, 2025. You have Generation 10 next year, 2026, 30th anniversary. 2027 would ideally be DLC for Gen 10. and then 2028 would be remakes.
I think so.
And then you fix your cycle, and you're not biting off more than you can chew. And ideally by then, that might sound like, wow, that's a long time. Making a game takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they need to catch up and restructure and reprioritize, that's great. If in whatever reality if Gen 5 did come out, I wouldn't be excited. Like, as somebody who likes Gen 5, I would be like, oh man, Gen 5. But I wouldn't be excited to the fact of they're not listening. I don't think they've learned anything from Scarlet and Violet or anything from BDSP. And I have my own problems with Legends Arceus. Again, I like Legends Arceus. I think it's great. I just went back to it recently, and there were a lot of things where I was like, this was okay when I was in my honeymoon period with this game. I don't think they're okay now.
I think it's a hard game to revisit because you were revisiting it. You didn't start a new game over, right?
Yeah.
I think it is an easier game when you pick it up from the get-go and continue from there.
Yeah.
I think it's a hard game to revisit.
I think it's a hard game to replay, though. Because when
you already know everything.
No, it's not that you're already knowing everything. I think one of the most disappointing parts to Legends was building up a team and then not actually being able to use it.
Yeah.
And so when you're replaying it, you kind of think, I could catch different Pokemon, but it doesn't really matter because they're not actually going to see the light of battle. Well, I mean, Volo's Togepi will definitely see the light of battle. But
well, I think it depends too on how you play the game because, like, in Scarlet and Violet, most of my Pokemon also didn't see the light of battle, but that was my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's like an obvious game plan for the next couple years, game-wise and competitive-wise, that would ideally line up with anime and TCG stuff and merchandise stuff. I just don't think that involves a remake, whether that's Black and White or Johto or whatever other region you would want to throw in, that needs to happen in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there will be remakes, and I hope there aren't. Like, to your point, like, I do hope that they are, like, listening. And again, boring timeline as it may be, I really hope it's like just ZA this year, Gen 10 next year, late next year, and that there's a lot of time given to those games. It is still very weird to me that I just want to know what this Black and White set that's coming out is like revolving around otherwise. Like, I'm not saying it's revolving around a game, but I don't think we're just going to get a Black and White TCG set and then like nothing else in the Pokemon universe.
Black and White, hear me out, Bobby. Black and White Pokemon Quest.
I'm all in. I'm all in for that.
Yeah, I don't know the TCG answer. It's just every Pokemon Day, I think people's expectations get so high. I made that YouTube video last year and just kind of showed that, you know, out of all the Pokemon Days, there was only like one or two that really like had so much content, and I think one was like the Sword and Shield one. And you know, we know Creatures makes games. They made Detective Pikachu and Detective Pikachu Returns. Neither were super good. We know that DNA works on Masters and they work on TCG Pocket. The developer of Pokemon Snap Namco Bandai, they have said multiple times they would love to do more Pokemon games, but it's not up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're working on something. Is it Chunsoft that does the Mystery Dungeon games? Don't know what they're doing. Like, there's a lot of different options.
Mm-hmm.
And even with all this talk, Legends ZA could have DLC, actual like DLC. I think Scarlet and Violet is pretty much done at this point, right? I think when you say your game has an epilogue, I think
Yeah, that's usually
I think
cementing the end there.
I think you're usually done. Yeah, like ZA could have actual DLC to carry it on to Gen 10. And there's a ton of spin-offs that can happen in between too. Like, it doesn't have to be ZA remake main series, or sorry, Legends spin-off main series remake Legends remake. Like, that doesn't have to happen.
Well, they could do, like, Gen 10 doesn't have to come out in November of next year either, right? Like, it's possible, like, even if, like, Legends ZA comes out in November of this year, 10 months, and you get... I mean, I know they probably wouldn't want to, like, watch out with, like, Worlds, right? And they probably wouldn't... They'd want to be careful with that. But it doesn't have to be, like, a full year. You could get Legends at the end of this year, and then Gen 10 in, like, September, and that would kind of line up, like, with the same timeline that, like, Arceus and Gen 9 was, and it didn't need a DLC. Like, it didn't have a DLC or anything. It wouldn't, you know. So you could have that, or you might not. Like, Legends ZA could just be Legends ZA, and then people just go to Gen 10 next with your, you know, spin-offs along the way. But I don't know. I hope Legends ZA is just really, really good. That's like small, big, whatever. But hopefully it's just a game that is, you know, just done well. You know, they hopefully they took the time and they listened to the feedback, and there's just, you know, something to that.
I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I have one very small random prediction when it comes to Legends ZA, which is I think there was more reason to the Synchro Machine being in the Blueberry Academy than it just being there. I think they're going to do something with that in future games, and I suspect it might play a part in what Legends ZA is. I don't have any other basis for that, but we'll see. Maybe
you're
you'll be
gonna
able to
say
run
that
around
we
as a
can
Pokemon.
Become a watchhog and then direct construction traffic.
I think what you're saying is that we're not the person. We are the Eevee that turns into the flying evolution.
We are the Eevee that will be able to take the air balloon over the city. I see. You know, Pokemon's very good at adding things and then never revisiting them.
It is, but
That's
we've also
true.
seen ways that small features in earlier games have evolved into much larger parts in later games, and I think that they're trying to do more of that.
Yeah. Also, just again, going back to the competitive thing, I don't think you can have a competitive game if you don't have breeding, and both
Well,
Legends and Pikachu and Eevee did not have breeding at all.
They've done so many things though to like
to make you rely
give
less on
you-
that. Yeah.
to give you like the ability to, because you're talking breeding so that like for like IVs and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
both of those games didn't really have true IVs, EVs. They both used a different form of candy. Legends used grit, and then Pikachu used candy. I think it was just called candy. I think it was like Mighty Candy, I think it was called.
Right. Yeah.
I know some people look at Legends Arceus and they go, well, this is what Legends ZA might be. And it's really hard to compare that to one specific game,
Sure.
right? Because it's like we've only had one game. One game is not a pattern.
Right.
But I've always looked at it as Legends and Let's Go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think they're way more similar than people give them credit for.
We will find out soon.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think
Hopefully.
I think this game will really kind of, I won't say solidify, but I think it will definitely give a lot of weight to what the Pokemon Company sees as a Legends game. And it's not just having Legends in the title, right? There's more to it than that, I think. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we get.
Okay. This episode went on way too long, so I'm probably going to move the Pokemon Go stuff to our bonus longer stuff. So I'm going to say we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. This is a random break, and then I'm going to cut this up and then put this at another point so then we know that there's a break. And then I'm going to say, thank you for listening. Thank you for making it to the end. I would love to know in the comments which Eevee you think is going to be an evolution for Pokemon.
No.
Really fun episode. If you are in LA this weekend, Bobby and I should be there. Granted, unless something weird happens, but I don't think so. I think everything's good. Fire's contained. Event is still on. Traffic will still be as bad as normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't
get around that. Literally.
Maybe that's a good thing in LA. Maybe traffic being bad is the consistency you want. You know, everything is normal. The traffic is bad.
Yeah. True.
Be very worried if traffic was very good all of a sudden.
Yeah, that would probably signify something bad if there was no traffic all of a sudden.
So we'll the show was a little messy. We'll rearrange it because ideally the goal is to have a 90-minute show and then give you guys who subscribe either on Apple Podcast or on Patreon an extra 30 minutes. I think this show ended up being 2.5 hours long or so. So you'll still get your 90 plus minutes for free. And then if you wanted more, if you go over to patreon.com/PKMNcast, every show going forward should have a bonus of extra content. We'll take the 2 articles we had and we'll save them for next time to talk about. They're not like super news specific at all. So the stuff I've been saving for post show is never like, you need to know about this right now. Breaking news. But for this show, we recorded Pokemon Go stuff beforehand. That will be the bonus stuff this time. If you want to listen to sports regarding Pokemon Go, that'll be in the bonus half. And yeah. Otherwise, thanks for making it to the end. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. Fun conversation. We will be back next week. Next week's show might be a little weird depending on how we set it up because some of us will be traveling, but we'll figure it out. And then the week after will be our big Pokemon Day show since Pokemon Day is the 27th and then we record on Sundays. So the March 3rd show should be that. And I'll be streaming Pokemon Day pretty much all day when it happens. We'll play a lot of different Pokemon games, not Mystery Dungeon, but other Pokemon games. But thank you for listening. Thank you for making it to the end. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Hannah. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are
super effective.
Super ready to become that flying type evolution in the battle-focused Pokemon Quest featuring only Gen 5 Pokemon other than the flying type evolution. Ready for that.
Wow.
Stadium 3. In regards to this, which leads to the title of this video, which I probably named something like Bulbapedia has lied or Bulbapedia was wrong. And I do want to say, I love Bulbapedia. I know plenty of people at the Bulbapedia staff, and they're very nice. But there is an error on the website, and I'm sure we're recording this on